Dr. Hazel Spears is our speaker today. She's a licensed religious science practitioner here at the Center of Peace. She received her doctorate in social psychology from Princeton University and teaches psychology at the nation's first historically Black institution for higher learning, Cheney University. Since the study of psychology is the other science of mind, it gives Dr. Spears great pleasure in a classroom to be able to parallel between what scientific research has uncovered about the workings of the mind and what spiritual principles tell us is the actual way human experience is created. Well-known psychological theories like self-fulfilling prophecy, self-handicapping, learned helplessness, the new school of positive psychology make it clear, as Einstein suggested, this is a universe of energy, which we use to create our experience. As she reminds her students regularly, you are centers of self-directed energy, drawing to you exactly what you are thinking, feeling, and doing. Don't like the result? Then work on the cause to get a change in the effects, your experience. So I got to know Hazel quite a bit. We spent 2 years together in prac studies, advanced studies, along with Alima. And one of the things I know is that she's passionate about education, passionate about teaching. She's passionate about her students, her beloved cats, this community, and life. We love her enthusiasm and her truth-telling. So please welcome my sister, Dr. Hazel Spears.
Thank you indeed, my sister Betty. Oh, I'm happy to be part of your family, our family. Good to see you, family. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today. You know Reverend Tawana. I don't know what that was, but Rev Tawana is not here today. She's with her family, her biological family, laying Uncle Jimmy family to rest, to live forever. And so we wish them joy, happiness, comfort. Yes, I give thanks for her safe travels. So it's my pleasure to be here to fill in today, and I'm going to do a little bit of, we're doing something different, a little bit of what I do at my university, Cheney. You're going to have a lecture. So we're trying this new technology, and so we're hoping it's going to go live into the world on the Zoom feed and all that. And it's about something that that I was turned on to when I first got here many, many years ago. I remember, but first, before I get into the story of all of this, let me go ahead and turn on my stuff and start out. All right, as I turn on my stuff, let me start out where we always start. Oh, before that, I do want to take a moment to honor the 30-year anniversary of the people of Rwanda, who can serve as models for peace and reconciliation and the power of forgiveness. As you may know, I hope so, these are people who turned against their own. They were really the same people, and they realized that only after the tragedy of 30 years ago. But now they're rebuilding a nation built on forgiveness and respect and the acknowledgement that we are truly all one. So God bless the people of Rwanda and all the people around this world who are learning that very lesson. So it is. The roots, this is my title of my talk today, The Ancient Roots of the Science of Mind. But first, let's start out at the beginning by addressing the principles of today's lesson. The first of which is, we believe, number one, it is number one, we believe in God, the living Spirit, Almighty. The second one, and keep these in mind, I will reference them, or I might not reference them, but I want you to recognize them. We believe that all people are individualizations of this one Spirit. Number three, we believe in the eternality, immortality, and continuity of the individual soul forever expanding. And number six, that's what that baby has, a baby in the house. So beautiful. Yes, the circle of life. We believe in the unity of all life, that everything is connected. And so it is. So let's talk about it. I'm going to take it back to the beginning, our beginning, my beginning particularly. The beginning for me was when I was a little kid. And I think I was in West Philly on Brown Street, and my daddy was in Korea in the Army. And I remember praying. I remember that I wanted three things for sure to be in life. And those three things were my heartfelt prayer, even if I couldn't express them, but I knew them because they followed me my whole life. The first of which is that there is magic in the world. I wanted that because I read the stories. My mother read them to me. I was a blessed child. My mother read stories to me, and I knew about the fairy tales and the adventures of the Brer Rabbit and this rabbit and that bunny here and that bunny there. And I wanted there to be magic in the world because the world needed magic. And even at 3, 4, 5 years old, I knew that much. And of course, the next thing I wanted, since my dad was in Korea, didn't know him very well, but I knew I wanted him to come back. And so I wanted there to be no death, whatever that was. Didn't exactly understand what it was, but no death seemed to be something that was important to the world. And last of all, I wanted to know that there was a God. I had heard of God, we talked about God, went to my grandma's church, and they talked about God, fell out over God, enjoyed, celebrated God. And so, yes, let there be a God for sure, please, right up there with all that other stuff. And thank goodness, and I say this, I'm preaching to the choir when I say that, I grew up and I found out all those things were true. And I am so blessed. I found out they were all true, and more so when I went over to Founders Church. I discovered my first center in Los Angeles, California on Vermont. I had a friend of mine, Ernie Hudson. You might know him. He's the actor in Oz and the fourth Ghostbuster. Ernie and I were chanting. I brought him over to my altar and said, Namyo Renge-kyo, Namyo Renge-kyo, Namyo Renge-kyo, Namyo Renge-kyo, and we were having a good time. And Ernie said, this is good, but you know something? I found a church. I said, oh, is that right? You're going to church now? He said, yeah, and I'm thinking about, this church is so good, I'm thinking about becoming a minister. I said, you thinking about becoming a minister? It's my running buddy, my good time fella, I'm saying, okie dokie. He says, come to church with me next Wednesday night. I said, okay, I will do that. And that's when I knew I was there. I had found what I had been looking for with the words of Dr. William Hornaday. And they just rang in my head, the thing that I had been looking for so long and hadn't found in any other church. Because my parents, they made me, if I'm going out Saturday night, I'm going to church Sunday morning, okay? So I had a chance to explore a few. And none had suited me like this one suited me. What a blessing. That was about in 1981. An answered prayer. And the same thing happened at a chance meeting for talking about a vacation getaway in Connecticut, a house. And I sat down at the table with Sandy Forrest, one of our practitioners here. And I just talked about, I'm doing A Course in Miracles, which I loved, that gathering. But I was just looking for something like Agape Church, like Founders Church, like I had back in California. She says, well, you need to come to the Center of Peace because that's what we do. And it was Easter Sunday coming up, so I took off from A Course in Miracles and came to Founders Church, a church that, despite the fact of being in mourning of Reverend Sheila Pierce, because I had seen her beautiful face on the internet, and I wanted to meet this lady. I did not have the opportunity. I came the month, March of 2017, the month she made her transition. So I saw a spiritual center in mourning, but that must have heightened the love expressed for one another because I walked through those doors and I never went back. As much as I loved my study group in Course in Miracles, I've been here since 2017. And that's because I'm finding everything, so much of what I've been looking for here. It was one Sunday, not too long after that, I'm standing at the back of the room and we're having the readings and all the other wonderful things that we have that share the words of some beautiful songs. Kudos on that brand new song, Steve. That was excellent. Whoa, out the bottle. So we're standing there listening to the words of Ernest Holmes, and I turned to a Man of Peace. That was the men's organization of the Center of Peace. And I said, Mark, isn't it? Mark Keyes was one of the leaders there, old-timer in the Center of Peace, so I thought I could ask him. I said, Mark, this is the words of Ernest Holmes are wonderful, amazing, fabulous, but you know he never leaves footnotes. Where's he getting all this information from? You know, I'm a scientist. I've learned enough to not trust things that come out of people's mouths sometimes, you know, even though his stuff was good. Mark looks at me and says, oh, this is ancient. This has been around a long time. This is ancient Kemetic knowledge. Another double take. You kidding? He says, oh no, that's where this is from. Ancient Egypt. So I had to breathe deep on that one and inhale and remember to Google that sometime real soon. Check that out. But it came to pass that at my university, Cheney University, we have a professor of Africana studies. And later that year, 2017, she says, I'm going to Egypt next summer. I said, well, that's nice. And she says, yes, you should come. I said, the 7 wonders of the world, I've never wanted, pyramids, all that good stuff. But what's that got to do with me? And she says, you're going to find out, because this is not an ordinary tour. This is an Afrocentric tour. This is an Afrocentric tour. And I said, Afrocentric? What are you talking about? She said, yeah, I'm talking about Nzinga Gaffin. And she said, an Afrocentric tour. I said, how different, how unusual. You said, what's that all about? She said, well, her Professor Asante from Temple University was going to be on this tour as well. So that was interesting. But what she said next was that we're going to ancient Kemet. We are going to Nubia. And somehow all the bells and alarms went off, and I said, oh, ancient Kemet, Nubia. I won't have to Google it. I can be there myself. So indeed, she said, yes, you can. And that next year, 2018, I went to ancient Kemet, starting out in Cairo, going down the Nile into Nubia to see all the amazing things that were there. And that was the same year, 2017, where National Geographic published this particular cover on their book. And if you can't see it, it's entitled The Black Pharaohs. An ignored chapter of history tells of a time when kings from deep in Africa conquered ancient Egypt. We're not going to talk about the conquering part today, but no, look at that statuary, and I'll have more of those faces for you to look at and see, because that was the amazing part of this trip down the Nile for me. It started out on the first day. We stayed at a wonderful place, the Mena House. The Mena House has big picture windows in which you can see the pyramids of Giza. And that was breathtaking, truly. But the next day, when we got into our tour bus and started our tour of Cairo, the museum and everything else, the first place we stopped was to see the Sphinx. And I don't know if you've ever been there, but something occurs when you get to the Sphinx. You cannot see it in two planes, but if you have ever been, come on, let's move it along. Yes, you can't see it in this picture. But on this tour bus, as we're rounding the face of this enormous edifice, something comes into view that is unmistakable. As we know, race is just a social construction. It's not real. But the people that followed Lucy out of the heart of Africa, they went to Asia. They went to the Nordic countries. They went all around the world. And some stayed in Africa, or even left Africa and came over here and other places. But as I'm going around this ancient edifice, this wonder of the world, I'm seeing something that brought tears to my eyes. This is, I don't know what an Egyptian is, but I know what an African is. And I was looking at an African face, the chin, the cheekbones, the forehead. Even without the nose, I could tell this was the face of an African man. And this was important to me because so much of our history is, as the National Geographic cover says, is lost, is covered, is destroyed, and certainly ignored, because it was buried. So I'm coming around and I'm seeing this face, and yes, I am touched. This was the first moment of many in which I was touched when I went to Kemet. And Kemet is the other name of Egypt, by the way. Egypt means Kemet. So this is this whole region. So I'm going around this, and it was indeed the face of an African. But I found out later I was wrong. It's not the face of an African man. It's probably the face of an African woman. And that is one of the things that we find throughout the ancient teachings, that it's not only the man, it's the woman. Because the ancient Kemets knew that you can't have a man without a woman. So they often appear together, the kings and the queens. So that was my first revelation, and it continued. There was more. We went to museums, the main museum in Cairo, and I want you to look at these faces, which is why I want to do a PowerPoint today. Look at these faces. They look familiar. They look like the round the way folks, huh? They've got big, headdress on and all the other things, the accoutrements. But what you see are faces that are looking familiar, and I have some more pictures where it will be even more obvious. These are the famous ones in all the museums and everything. But they are all over when you go to down the Nile and to the labyrinths, miles and miles of incredible work, incredible markings. Here you have a tomb in the Valley of the Kings. And as you can see, they have excavated, and these tombs are all over this ancient land. Africa is big, and what I'm going to talk about today centers primarily in Kemet. But Africa is as big as the size of three United States. So it's a vast land with many different beliefs, but there are certain ones that are constant and repeated in the different Yoruba, Ndebele, Akan, all these religions that have, and further, we've come to find that much of Christianity and Judaism is based on these ancient beliefs and ancient tenets. But here you have this beautiful, and we're going to see some of this when we go to Egypt later this year in November, beautiful carvings and labyrinths and just amazing things that were done in these hallways. This is what I want you to take a minute and look at. As soon as I get back there, I have some questions for you, but first, this is what I want you to look at. You got the Nefertaris and the Nefertitis and the Imhoteps, many Hoteps, and all kinds of kings and queens of ancient Egypt. Look at them. Look at those faces. They do indeed. You can see that there are faces. Not to say that weren't different cultures. There was movement back and forth. When I first talked to Virgil at Gaffin about pharaohs, I said, "Oh, you mean like Cleopatra?" She says, "Yes, like Cleopatra, but she was the last one. That was the end of a long line." And in fact, earlier in the line and in the beginning, what we find out, the original pyramids were built by black and brown people. And you can see somebody that's very, very black there, Ahmose Nefertari. Now, the question is, why is she black? Well, in these ancient Kemetic teachings, black is good. Black is spirituality. Black is fertility. Black is a beautiful thing. So we don't know if she's black because she's of Nubian heritage, which she also was, and she's black because she's being honored. It's an honor to be painted black. So there's many mysteries that still remain to be uncovered, and these are just the beginning of them. But look at these faces. They are indeed the faces you've looked at and seen your whole life in our communities. And I was once again saying, oh my God, it's all right here. And it is. And we have to ask some questions when we see these wonderful things. Did slaves do this magnificent work? These are intricate hallways, and so many of them. How can you get slaves to do it? You must be some talented slaves. And then, why is there no soot on the ceilings? Why, from coal or from candles? Why are these, well, they've been buried, and there's thousands of them more in Sudan and throughout this area, but this takes time and money and painstaking work. So they've uncovered a number of them in the Valley of Kings, but you can see this work is prolific, is intricate, is full of colors. It's the work of skilled craftspersons. And so We wonder how they were done, and we know that probably multi-geniuses like Imhotep came up with an intricate system of mirrors that caught the sunlight, shone it into the first passageway, and passageway to passageway to passageway in order to get this work executed. And not only that, you have the architecture itself, which we haven't quite uncovered. How were these things done? These astrologically and geologically, architecturally sound buildings constructed to last throughout the ages, indeed to be called the wonders of the world. So there I was in the heart of ancient Kemet, and I had a quest. Now, we had a wonderful tour guide who Dr. Gaffin herself trained. Ahmed knew all about the ancient roots, the black roots of ancient Egypt, and he shared this prolifically about the surgeries, about the black pharaohs, about all the things that were just mind-blowing that I don't have the time to go into today. But I know I wanted the spiritual beliefs. That's what I wanted. All this architecture is wonderful, but what were the spiritual beliefs of these ancient people? And so I had made this known to my tour, and there was one fella, like on the next to the last day of the tour, had a wonderful tour, but he says, that book, you know what you're looking for, those beliefs of the ancient people of Nubia, of Kemet? He says, there's a book on the third floor outside in the hallway, and I think it's what you're looking for. I said, are you kidding me? So I rushed back from lunch, ran up in the elevator to go ahead and look to see if this book was still there. I don't know how long it had been there, but I sure didn't want it to disappear before I got to it. And so, there we go. Yeah. So in answering this question, who were they and what did they believe, I was blessed to come across first this book. This is written by an American scholar, Linda Myers, and her field is black psychology. And as you may know, there is reality, and then there's philosophy, and then there's psychology, down through the different levels. And that's what I am. I'm a psychologist. Trained at Princeton University, so you were looking at a very colonized mind here. So it's often been a leap, which is why I was so hesitant when Dr. Gaffin said, come to Egypt and find out some truths, ancient truths. And I'm saying, okay, I was skeptical. But here I was, another miracle in my life of miracles. There's this thing that I'm looking for, and the title of this is Understanding the Afrocentric Worldview, Introduction to Optimal Psychology. And I have to tell you about this psychology because this lecture is based on a lecture I did at school. Because I've been teaching there for 19 years, and this is the first year I did black psychology. Because why do black psychology? Because I was trained at Princeton. We do psychology. No. Black psychology, black spirituality, black history is all about, it's all human history. But when you focus on an area that has been neglected, when you have to unearth some of the wrongs that have been put out there, in regular psychology, we often look for, what's wrong with you? And we have misused psychology throughout our American history, surely, and in South African history, to support the beliefs and tenets. The Bible goes back to, the children of Ham were dark and they were condemned to be servants their entire existence. This type of thing that's pervasive in psychology, intentional and not intentional. But everybody's history needs to be known, everybody's psychology needs to be known, and we can benefit from knowing other people's spiritual beliefs because, in fact, they started somewhere and they also coalesce in many, many different incarnations. So this is the first thing I discovered, and what a blessing. Optimal psychology, psychology, and this is how black psychology differs from Princetonian regular psychology. It is a psychology of the soul. We cannot take the soul in black psychology and African-centered psychology out of the discussion, out of the equation. We know that they're together. We get our psychology from the way we think. Kind of popular here in Science of Mind as well. But what we think we are infused, we are connected to, we are led and guided by our soul's mission. And so it's important not to totally disavow that, but figure out some way we can weigh and measure and count, these things that are true and eternal. And so that was a revelation, this particular book. And then another professor, also trained at Temple in the Temple Africana Studies Department, Matt Simmons, turned me on to this book because many have, I'm pushing the wrong button, an introduction written, the first one was written in 1993, I believe, and this one was written in 2018. And again, reiterates, because whenever you talk about black psychology, you have to talk about things that are spiritual. They go hand in hand. So, let me go ahead and get into some of these beliefs that are part of the psychology, the elements of spirituality from ancient Kemet. For one thing, they talk about humans in relationship with one another, communalism, the concept of Ubuntu. Okay, we will return to that later. And also, in relation to the environment, nature is a very important part of Kemet, ancient spirituality. A Mother Earth comes from this, that revere the earth as a mother that nurtures us and has brought us here. And of course, ancestor veneration. Ancestors can be called upon for safety in times of calamity and are a medium between the living and God and spirit. So veneration of those who have gone before us, the ancestors, is very important. Adolfo in 2016 said, in the African worldview, the nature of being does not comprise solely of what we can perceive with our visual sense. That is, in our eyes, with our eyes. There are two aspects to the created universe, the physical and the spiritual. So this particular belief that we come from spirit, live in spirit, and are physical for a temporary period of time comes from ancient Kemet. Why am I having such a hard time with this little rascal today? Come on, baby. Thank you. Thank you. These ancient beliefs, the people of ancient Africa, believed that all things have an impact on each other, and this interconnectedness, this interplay is universal. We all have it. There is a cause and effect relationship, and that's found in all acts and thoughts, resulting in all experiences. We create our reality from spirit. The religion of ancient Egypt subscribed, and this is where we depart, maybe, from the teachings of Ernest Holmes and the science of mind. They subscribed to reincarnation, that human beings live in a cycle, that things go round and come around. Kemetic priests said that we shall come back millions and millions of times. This was unearthed by Professor Asante and Mazama at Temple. That particular element of the teachings. Millions and millions of times may sound like a lot, but we are talking eternity here, right? So, but I think you get to cut that short if you learn quick, if you're a good learner. I'm working on that. The Creator is envisioned as formless, self-conscious, and intelligent, beyond form and containment, and can transmute into all forms, thus the various forms manifested across this earth. And some of the later deities, which I'll mention in a moment or two, they are all part of the one being. But this was a monotheistic culture, understanding there is God and there are people, and we are part of that one God, that one God. This essence or spirit of the Creator is present within all things, both animate and inanimate. And I recall on Easter Sunday when Reverend Twana said, yes, when Jesus came into Jerusalem on his last day, and they called him an imposter, and he says, even the rocks know who I am. Powerful stuff. And it's true. There's spirit in everything. This present that gives form and life to all things, and also that there is an essential purpose in life, and that is about connecting one's self, small s, to oneself, the great I and I, our Creator. So those are some of the beliefs, but let me go ahead. This wouldn't be complete without a nod to some of the other people other gods you might be familiar with. Ra and Amun-Ra. All right, you have Ra, the supreme being, the most powerful god in Egyptian mythology, associated with kingship and cosmic order. Sun Ra, Ra, the creator of the universe, and this entity brought life and light to earth. Well, there were pharaohs who, well, since everybody else is divine, they're the divinest, the divinest of the divine. Amun-Ra, God and Pharaoh, a god with two sides, one that explained nature and the cosmos, and the other that had concern for common people. The concept of Amun-Ra emphasizes the common individual's connection to the supreme being and the inner power that is within us all. Indeed, I'm going to end with this final sharing of a very important philosophy that goes throughout all of Africa, to my understanding. Ubuntu, a traditional African concept. The word Ubuntu comes from the Zulu and Xhosa languages and can be roughly translated as humanity towards others. Certainly a principle of science of mind. Ubuntu embodies all those virtues that maintain harmony and the spirit of sharing among the members of a society. It implies a constant awareness that the individual's actions today are a reflection of the past and will have far-reaching consequences into the future. A person with Ubuntu knows his or her place in the universe and consequently is able to interact gracefully with all other individuals. Let's talk a little bit about the philosophy of Ubuntu. To be human is to affirm one's humanity by recognizing the humanity of others, and on that basis, establish respectful relations with them. If and when, and this is important, if and when one is faced with a decisive choice between wealth and the preservation of the life of another human being, then one should opt for the preservation of life. Ubuntu. Ubuntu. And a story from the annals of anthropology. An anthropologist once proposed a game to the children of an African tribe. He put a basket of fruit near a tree and told the kids that the first one to reach the fruit would win them all. When he told them to run, they all took each other's hands and as a group ran together and then together enjoyed the fruit. When asked why they ran like that, because one could have taken the fruit and had it all for himself or herself. And the children said, Ubuntu, how can one of us be happy if all the others are sad? Indeed, Ubuntu is a philosophy of African tribes that can be summed up as, I am because we are. Practitioners, please join me. Thank you. Please join me all please join me as we go within and remember who we are and where we came from. This is one lifetime that we celebrate. And we celebrate the reconnection, the awareness, becoming woke with the connection that we are one with Spirit. What a blessing for Founders Church, Agape Church, the Center of Peace, and our centers, our spiritual centers across the nation and around the world, to bring this important wisdom, ancient knowledge to those who have not yet heard and are thirsting for this knowledge. What a fount, what a balm, what a joy to know. What a joy to know that I am Spirit. Spirit am I. A child of God, unlimited, free from all limits. I am safe, I am healed, I am whole. I am free to forgive, free to save the world. Indeed, that is what we do here at the Center of Peace as we gain in our knowledge of who and what we are, of our connectedness, of our understanding that we can only rise and prosper as we do this as one another, giving to one another, learning from one another, teaching one another, celebrating life as a whole. I give thanks for this center. I give thanks for this community. I give thanks for this one mind reflected in the unity, in the unity of the true Alpha, the Alpha that is calm, at peace, that is loving and kind, that leads by mandate given by God. That role to have here on earth. I give thanks for Reverend Tawana. I give thanks for the practitioners who have stepped up. I give thanks for this congregation who comes here for a purpose. And I know with the music, with the praying, with the readings, with everything we do here, gets that balm, gets that water of life, is fed on a very spiritual level. I give thanks for this community. I give thanks for you. I give thanks for the center of peace, because I know truly I am, because we are, and so it is.
Ubuntu, Ubuntu, Ubuntu.
Thank you. Love, Teresa.
Thank you. It was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Once the genie is out of the bottle, you can't unsee the truth. Thank you so much. That's beautiful.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you
Wow.
for this opportunity to share with my
That's
community.
awesome.
As we go forward through this week, through our lives, I will leave you with one last African proverb. We must learn to live together as one people, or perish together as fools. And so it is. Thank you all for your time and attention. Be well. Be well. Go for it.